morning. Sorry I'm a little bit late. Good morning, good morning. I know I'm a smidge late, but 6:30 came real early this morning, y'all. It really, really did. I don't know what it was. Usually I'm pretty up and at 'em, but it is what it is, right? We'll just roll with it. Ooh. Go, you're not late. We're running on your time. No. I would never make anyone run on my time. It's just sending love to y'all. Wait. Does that mean you're not, wait, what are you doing? Good morning. I can't stick around. Hold on. Can't stick around because I'm working with an unmatched med student. Oh, well, good luck with that, Addie. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm tired. I know you're Addie. That was obviously not personal. Good morning. And, Addie, all of this will be up on YouTube later today, so you won't miss the readings and whatnot, because we've been doing that. And I know that some of you are watching it because I can see it. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about that, is that we will get this taken care of for you. But good luck with that. Oliver is sick, so I guess I'm here today. Ugh, bummer. Well, we're glad you're here, but I'm sorry that Oliver is sick. Bummer. Let's make coffee, though, because we need it. Does everyone have their coffee? Everyone's got their coffee? Good morning. I'm off today. Lucky being off today. I don't know what off feels like. What does off feel like? Even when I was in Disney World, I was working. It was like answering emails and making videos and whatnot. You had an awful night. Why? What happened? I'm sorry. I hate that. Did you just have a hard time sleeping? It's your spring break. That makes sense. I don't want a person today. I know. I don't want a person today either. I don't really want to do the work today. You know what I'm also sad about? I'm out of croissants. I need to go to Costco. I think we're going to Costco tomorrow morning though. I don't really want to do the work today. I don't want to do the work today. Hey lady, what's up? Guys, Rochelle is in the house. Rochelle, we're not quite on your husband's book yet, but we welcome you anyway. Good morning, good morning, good morning. We've danced the whole night through. Good morning, my darling, to you. Good morning, good morning. It's great to stay up late. Good morning, my darling, to you. When the band began to play, the stars were shining bright. Now the milkman's on his way. It's too late to say goodnight, so good morning, good morning. Sunbeams will soon smile through. Good morning, my darling, to you. There you go. I do need to buy gems for Cave of Wonders. I'm going to Michael's later today to buy them. That is true. You are right about that. You were right about that. I'm going to buy gems for Cave of Wonders at Michael's. Yep. Thank you for that. You're welcome. I'm always using that song while waking me up, but she always forgot the words. That's funny. I love that. That's really funny. It's one of my favorite songs. It's one of my favorite scenes. I love Judy Garland with all my heart and soul. I love Mickey and Judy movies. I will sing them forever, ever. You're so happy in the morning. I mean, maybe. Or maybe I just put on a good show. My mom used to sing Rise and Shine and Good God of Glory, Wake Me Up, and it was terrible. I know that one too. You guys don't want me to do that one, do you? Rise and shine and give God the glory, glory. I thought you're Jewish. Why would you sing that one? Isn't that a Christian song? Am I dumb? I don't know. I barely slept last night. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Wait. Boom. Boom. Come on. This is day 4. This is a 4-day streak of a perfect coffee pour. I know you like Broadway, but were you ever a performer? I twas not. I only performed in school because in school they don't tell you that there are other jobs. So when I got out, I got other jobs. No, actually, I'm super cool with my lashes how they are. I like them with morning crust and clump. That's how I prefer my lashes. I don't know about all you. Just kidding. My eyelashes are just fine. I say good morning to you. Good morning to you. Sun is shining out and you should too. That's really cute. It's really cute. All right, let's get over to the chair. Why do people say that? I have no idea. It's some kind of weird trend here on TikTok that I've never understood, but it's fine. I just roll with it. All right. Hello, friend. Got caught up on YouTube. Nice. Welcome, welcome. I can't wait to read a book this morning with you. Maybe I'll feel a little bit better. Yes, I hope so. Sasha, I think Jewish camp and Christian camp have a lot of the same songs, probably. Her lashes look 100% fine. Oh, yeah. People are just weird. Don't even stress, Rochelle. Don't even stress. A friend who went to Y Camp knew my camp's announcement song. I think they just use all the same junk at camps. Doing it on Morning Live is a great way to get muted. Y'all, Becca does not handle things like that well in our mornings. She's like, the mornings are for sweetness and love and emotional healing. We can't have eyelashes here. That's not what Becca sounds like at all, but that is my imitation for the moment. The Superman Jesus prayer for grace. Oh my gosh, that sounds hilarious. I did go to Christian summer camp. Is that what you feel like when you say it, Becca? Are you like twitching your eye a little bit? Just a little though, right? Not too much. We don't want too much twitching. All right. I mean, it's morning. I may sound like that. Fair enough. Fair enough. Mornings are for pre-workout and gains. Y'all, that is, this is my, I didn't realize who that was for a second. Hello. Hi. Are you with Elizabeth? Are you with Elizabeth this morning, or is she already at work and you're at the gym? I feel deprived. My parents never sent me to any camps. You know, it's okay. She's at work. Yeah. I didn't realize it was you for a second. And then I saw your username and in your little picture. And I was like, oh, wait, I know you. We put one prayer to Redemption song by Bob Marley and another to... That's cool. You're off today. Nice, nice. Classic, classic. All right. Well, you joined one of my chill lives. You went to religious camp. Yeah, same. That's why we all need some religious healing, which we're not getting from this book, but we have gotten from previous books. This book, actually, I have to say, Oswald says hello. Hello, Oswald, and all the new babies who I haven't met yet in your house. Y'all, Oswald is a, well, I was going to say a dachshund puppy, but he's not a puppy anymore. He's old man almost now. But Oswald is their puppy. I still call him puppy, even though he's not a puppy anymore. I used to puppy sit him when he was younger. He's not a baby anymore, though. Liz tells lots of stories about Christian summer camp. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, it's a little eye twitchy if you ask me. But what I was going to say was, despite the fact that this book has a lot more marginalized communities in it, it feels a lot less traumatic somehow. I think that is he's fully recovered from his surgery and super wiggly, but that's good. I think it's because of the style of storytelling. I think that we get a little bit more of those traumatic moments from the memoir situation because we know how real it is. And then the language in the Ugly Stepsisters book was just so intense for some of us who have really intense moms. I think that's why that was like that. And My Name is Memory. Well, that's another story entirely. But I've been really enjoying this book, just not traumatized by it at all. Could go home after camp if she went to the doctor. She had a UTI, which, oh my God. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. Why do you know so much about slime, bruh? Because I put a lot of time and research into the work that I do. Wow. They really screwed her up, huh? I really yes, I do make slime for a living, but I think I probably would have done the research anyway, because when I like something, I hyperfixate on it until I am an expert. And that is a part of my neurodivergence. Hyperfixation is. And when I hyperfixate on something, I don't stop until I know all the things. Yeah. And slime has been a years-long hyperfixation where I study literally everything that there is to know. So even people who have quite a bit more by way of followers than I do still come and ask me questions because they know I'm insane and I know more about the actual product than they do. That's true. I cannot tell you how many times a day I get DMs from other Slimers being like, hey, so how do you do this? Good morning, Cocaine. It's good to see you hop in. All right, so let's read our book this morning. Let's read it. And that's why everyone's always like, wait, you know so-and-so? I'm like, yeah, I know so-and-so. They take slime advice from me. Which is funny. Okay, so we are on chapter 12 this morning. We are not sliming. We are reading The Circus Train. I'm on my way to go to Starbucks to get coffee for the morning book time. Yes, I support that decision. Although I made my coffee at home, I support you getting your coffee wherever it makes you happy to get your coffee. I'm in class, but I really wanted to say good morning. I love that you wanted to come say good morning to us. We love you, and I love your icon. It's hilarious. I can see the little person over the user thing. Usually the regular user thing is like, oh, it's a troll, but I can see the little person in yours, and that is funny, and I love it. Okay, so let's read. For anyone who's new here, we're reading The Circus Train. It's been an absolutely phenomenal book so far. If you missed any of the previous chapters, they are up on YouTube, because that's what we decided we were going to do to be able to get everyone caught up. So the full lives are on YouTube, which is very long, but a lot of people like listening to them while they work. So there you have it. Okay, chapter 12. At the end of October, the trio headed back to London. Despite France and Great Britain declaring war against Germany, Horace insisted that the circus was buffered from the dangers of what was happening all around them, that the world of wonders was a country unto itself, existing in a bulletproof, conflict-free bubble. Security had been increased at the border crossings, and inspections conducted by the local police or the SS were not uncommon. However, the circus was granted special permission to move through the continent with little, if any, difficulty. Horace understood the Nazis. He knew what they looked like, he knew what they liked and what they didn't. And so he commanded Johannes to scrub his face clean of any makeup at any checkpoint that they passed through. The two Romany twins were told to lie about their origins and were forced to practice speaking with Italian accents. Fearing the SS would mistake her for a mulatto, Horace insisted that Necca obscure the creamy patch of skin on her face. It took hours for a makeup artist to cover her face and neck with a mixture of foundation and pressed powder. Alexander, though technically the one who endangered them the most, had been blessed by his father's looks. With his flaxen hair and ice-blue eyes, he warranted barely a glance from the officers who clambered onto the train carriages at each border crossing, checking the passengers' papers. Chadwick was quick to ply them with food, drink, and entertainment, and then, if everything passed muster, they were free to go. During their first week back, Dr. Wilson pulled Theo aside at dinner one evening, asking him to come to the infirmary carriage. "Have you noticed something's wrong with Lena?" Theo asked nervously, taking a seat across from the doctor. "On the contrary, I wanted to talk to you about some new research I've read about," he said, pulling out a stack of papers and placing it on his desk. "There's been talk of an unconventional but promising treatment for polio survivors. It was pioneered by a bush nurse from Australia." Dr. Wilson gestured to a pile of woolen rags next to him. "The basic premise involves soaking rags in hot water, wrapping them around the child's legs, and conducting a series of exercises designed to bring the limbs back to life that have atrophied, or, in Lena's case, never truly been used in the first place." Theo shook his head. "Lena's fine the way she is. She doesn't need fixing." Dr. Wilson nodded. "I agree completely. This isn't about there being anything wrong with her. It's more that with the advances in treatment, it might be worth exploring options." Theo picked up one of the rags and eyed it dubiously. "And this?"
This is your solution? I'll admit I'm skeptical. We had success with plaster casts and braces and the iron lung, Dr. Wilson continued. But this treatment is different. It wouldn't be like putting an adhesive bandage on a wound. We'd been healing from within. He paused. He didn't want to give Theo false hope, but at the same time, he was enthused about the prospect of what could happen. If it works, it could change her life. He proceeded to go over the details of the treatment, how long it would take, what it would entail, and how Lena might feel. Do you think it would work for her? I can't promise anything, but that boy had a point. If we don't try, we'll never know. That evening, before Lena went to bed, Theo told her about Dr. Wilson had said. Let me be perfectly clear. This is your choice. He patted the bedspread. No matter what you decide, we'll all love you just the same. Lena was quiet for a minute. She glanced down at her legs snuggled under her blanket. In her gut, she knew she'd be okay if things stayed the way they were, but there was no denying the truth. Her life would be easier if she could walk. No better, just simpler. Besides, she thought, warming to the idea, she could look at this as her very own science experiment with herself as the test subject. I think, she said slowly, making sure she felt confident with her choice, I think I'd like to try. A slow smile crept across her face. And so Lena began to experiment with physical therapy protocol devised by Dr. Wilson. Each day, she'd arrive at the infirmary to find him boiling a set of woolen rags. Once hot, they'd wrap them around her legs and guide her through a series of exercises designed to build strength and increase circulation in her lower limbs. Leg lifts, hip abductions, hamstring flexation, calf muscle raises, and more. Dr. Wilson also insisted that Lena begin strengthening her abdominal muscles. The treatment didn't come without pain or monotony. The rags were breathtakingly hot, and the exercises were tedious. Sometimes, as she worked through them, Lena would bite her lip till it bled. More than once, she'd shaken her head after the rags had been applied, claiming she didn't want to do the treatment anymore. It hurts, she gasped, fighting back tears as her heart sank into her limbs. Try not to think about the pain, Dr. Wilson would say. Focus on the end result. And she would close her eyes, whisper the words her father had told her in Hungarian maze, epimeno. And then she would continue on. Hi, Olivia. Slowly, Lena's legs began to show signs of life, a hint of color. After 2 months of steady therapy, she looked down at her limbs in the bath as they stretched out in front of her, hardly recognizing them. Buoyed by signs of progress, she began attacking her exercises with the same enthusiasm that she brought to her schoolwork, diligently repeating painful motions until she had mastered them. In the evenings, she recorded notes about her progress in a journal she kept by her bedside. Alexander would often keep her company, pointing out times when her form could improve or cheering her on when she grew weary of the exercises. On a cool November day, they sat alone in the infirmary, waiting for Dr. Wilson to return. Those cloths smell awful, Alexander said, wrinkling his nose. Lena threw a pillow at him. It's not my fault. Alexander tossed the pillow playfully back at her and then stretched arms over his head. I'm bored, he announced, and I'm hungry. Can we go to the dining hall? Dr. Wilson said to stay here. Alexander thought for a moment, debating what they could do that wouldn't require leaving the carriage, but would also satiate his appetite. I know, he snapped his fingers. Let's have a picnic. Lena laughed. We haven't got any food. Leave that to me, Alexander said, already halfway out the door. Not 10 minutes later, he rushed back in with a basket in tow. Look, he said, dropping it onto Lena's bed. Where did this all come from? Lena asked, taking in all the feast. There was a packet of lavace qui cheese, a box of cream crackers, a bottle of orange juice, 2 packets of Garibaldi biscuits, Battenberg cake, a bottle of capers, a jar of mustard, and that was just what Lena could see on the top. Mario, Alexander replied, lining up all the items on the bed. Cheese? He offered her a small triangle, watching Lena as she tore off tore off the foil and bit into it. Delicious, she said. Those ones are my favorite, Alexander agreed, tearing open the crackers. I'd eat them all the time in France. Tell me about your travels, Lena said, taking another bite of cheese. What do you want to know? Where have you been? More like, where haven't I been? Alexander said wistfully. I've been to France, of course, Spain, Italy, Germany, Poland, Holland, Morocco. Morocco? What were you doing there? Alexander furrowed his brow. My father had a very special piece of art he was looking to sell, and there was a prospective buyer in Morocco, so we sailed from the tip of Gibraltar all the way to Morocco. Lena spread a dollop of mustard over a cracker. What's it like? Alexander thought back to the overcrowded Gemma Elfine, a clustered historical city with people hawking everything from cheap trinkets to expensive leather. His father had instructed him and his mother to stay busy while he visited the Kutubay Mosque in order to complete his deal. Well, it was chaotic. People were everywhere. It was really easy to get lost. What kind of art was your father selling? A Vasquez, Alexander said. From Spain. Do you know who Vasquez was? A king? Not quite. Alexander popped a piece of pickled turnip into his mouth. Diego Vasquez, born in Seville, influenced by Caravaggio, he painted many of the works for the King of Spain. The painting my father was selling, Les Menants, it's famous. So famous that the king insisted that he hang it in the Prado so that everyone could see it. That's amazing. Alexander paused, retracing the threads of the story he'd been weaving. He thought back to his father shaking him and his mother awake in the dark of the night in the Spanish capital, insisting that they leave right away. He remembered wiping sleep from his eyes and stumbling out of the vacant flat and seeing a gigantic painting sitting in the open back of the wagon. He remembered the choppy boat ride and then hired help his father had contracted to move the painting, who leered at him once he got in their way. He then looked at Lena and continued, One day, the King of Spain came to my father and said he wanted to sell it to an interested buyer in Morocco, but it was such a valuable painting that the king didn't trust anyone but my father to deliver it. So that's what he did. He took it right to the mosque and he sold it. Who was buying it? The Sultan of Morocco. The Sultan of Morocco? Lena murmured. She sighed dreamily, imagining what a sultan would look like. How much did he pay for it? Alexander frowned. She was asking so many questions that sooner or later he was going to run out of answers. Not much. Lena raised her eyebrows and she sipped on an elderflower soft drink. Surely it was worth thousands. It was, Alexander said carefully. The Sultan traded us priceless gifts to give to the king, like beautiful tapestries from the walls of the mosque itself. Wow, Lena sucked in a breath. Was it incredible? Alexander nodded. Magnificent. We needed 10 men just to move it. It was all shades of turquoise and blue and green, laced with silver and gold and purple threads. Purple is a royal color. Did you know that? And they'd hand-stitched some calligraphy right onto it. A beautiful Islamic prayer. I can't believe you met a sultan. Lena picked up a dollop of clotted cream that she'd placed onto a scone. Why was it so dangerous to bring the painting over? The pirates. No. Yes, Barbary pirates. They roamed the coast, seizing anything of value, but my father was very skilled at avoiding them. There really was no one else could have safely delivered such a valuable piece of art. In fact, the Sultan was so happy he even gave me a gift, Alexander added. Really? What was it? A jeweled dagger, Alexander explained, thinking back to the toy trinket his father had tossed carelessly in his direction after the deal was complete. It had diamonds and emeralds and a giant ruby at the hilt. Did you celebrate after? Sort of, Alexander said. His father had come back drunk on red wine and announced he was spending the night in a harem in the center of Marrakesh. It was a celebration, at least for him. I went on a night picnic with my mother. Anya, Lena said, proud that she remembered her name. We packed the plumpest pomegranate seeds, the ripest mangoes, the greenest pistachios, and a jug of passion fruit juice. And we took a camel to the center of the Sahara Desert. There, we watched fire dancers twirl as we feasted into the night. Alexander stopped talking, remembering how it had really played out. He remembered how he and his mother had nearly frozen to death. The desert so warm in the day It could be deathly cold at night. He remembered going from stall to stall in the market, pleading with one of the sellers to give him scraps of fabric, anything to keep them warm. He remembered his mother wrapping her only shawl around him, sacrificing her warmth for his, and the cough that ravaged her body for weeks, all because his father wanted to blow the money he'd earned on women and drink. "Your old life sounds amazing," Lena said. "I wish I had an international art deal for a father." Alexander gave her a half-hearted smile. "Your father's an illusionist. Everyone must be jealous." Lena shook her head, her smile fading. "I doubt it." Alexander was silent for a moment. "If you could do anything at all, what would it be?" Lena picked up a few grapes off the bunch that she was clutching in her hand, contemplating the question. I'd like to go to boarding school like Clara did, and then I could study to be a scientist or a doctor or an astronomer." "Why is it called boarding school?" "Well, because you live there." "Well, that sounds awful." "I think it sounds lovely. Clara said that at St. Ives they have loads of dorm rooms with the beds all lined up. The food's bad, but that's all right. And every Sunday the girls get pocket money and they can buy whatever sweets they like. Clara's favorite was echo cakes. I've never had one," she said enviously. "Well, you don't need to go to boarding school to try an echo cake. Mario can make you one." "But I want to go," Lena said earnestly. "Clara said that they had every subject you can imagine and a huge library. Also, you live with loads of other girls who have to be your friends because there are no parents there." Alexander felt a pang of guilt, remembering what Theo had said about wanting to keep Lena close. But looking at her forlorn face, he wondered if her father was doing the right thing. "If you want to go, why don't you? My father would never let me leave." "Have you asked him?" Lena hesitated. Her father indulged her love of learning to no end, but the few times she wondered out loud about boarding school and university, he'd abruptly changed the subject. Still, Alexander had a point. "I'd take the huge library, not the school. I hear you, Renee." She'd actually never outright asked Theo, but it was mainly because she was certain of what he would say. She looked at Alexander, her eyes flickering with pain. "It's not that easy. I can't just walk out of here." "You don't need to be able to walk to study at a real school. Besides," he said, pointing to her legs, "look how much progress you've made already." "And how am I meant to get there in the first place?" Lena said as a challenge. "You have your father drive you. He can drop you off in the autumn and pick you up in the spring. That is what boarding school is, isn't it?" Alexander stuffed an olive into his mouth. "It's not that simple," Lena said, avoiding his gaze. Alexander studied her. She'd gone quiet and she was staring at her legs. "I know it's not simple," Alexander said, treading carefully. "What I'm saying is that your brain's not the thing stopping you. Is it?" The world of wonders could traverse through 9 more cities over 3 more months before Lena would finally muster up the courage to broach the topic of attending a real school. They were in Munich, and she was in the library, her lessons done for the day, quietly completing her homework. Across from her, Clara was reading a book. Lena had replayed her conversation with Alexander many times in her head. Your brain's not the thing stopping you, is it? Clara, Lena said, putting her pencil down, can you tell me the story again of how you short-sheeted the bed? Finished with our sums, are we? Lena pushed her notebook towards her teacher, watching as Clara eyed her neatly written answers. She'd finished everything she'd been assigned, and she knew Clara couldn't say otherwise. All right, then, Clara said, handing back Lena's homework. She took off her spectacles and placed a bookmark in the novel she was reading. Matron had been exceptionally strict with us around the time that it happened. 2 girls had gotten into a food fight in the mess hall, resulting in an entire dinner's worth of beef stew and boiled carrots ending up on the ground. She was furious. She wouldn't let us go into town that Sunday and forbade us from buying any sweets or chocolates. That's so cruel, Lena said, shaking her head. Mario gave her anything she wanted. Indeed. So a few of us got together and hatched a plan. Some of us would keep her distracted on the way back from the toilet. The others would run into her room and short sheet her bed. What did she say when she went to bed? What could she say? She came running right out, screaming at us, but by then we were all back in our dorms, pretending to be asleep. But you didn't get in trouble, Clara shrugged, laughing at the memory. She'd already taken away our privileges. What else was she going to do? Besides, it was worth it to hear her scream. That sounds like so much fun. Clara nodded. I can't begin to tell you how wonderful it was. But the academic curriculum was difficult. I'd often drink a few mugs of Ovaltine to stay awake during exams. She smiled fondly, but it was also the most formative time of my life. I made so many friends there, and it put me on the path to becoming a teacher. Lena traced the outline of wood grain on the table. Do you think... She paused, not quite believing what she was about to ask. Do you think I'd be a good enough student for St. Ives? Oh, my, Clara said, sitting silently for a moment, processing her question. I must confess, I've never seriously considered boarding school for you, given the circumstances. But if I were to isolate your academic abilities, I see no reason why you wouldn't thrive in such a place. Your interest and passion for science in particular are impressive. I personally think you'd make a fine physician. Who'd make a fine physician? Theo had entered the library. Papa! Lena jumped, startled to see her father. What happened to your workshop? Theo pecked her on the forehead. Young Klaus took ill with a poor stomach. Too many caramels, I think, he said, chuckling. Clara glanced at Lena. Mr. Papadopoulos, I was just telling Lena that she's been performing exceptionally well this school year. Theo beamed, squeezing his daughter's shoulders. With the amount of time she spends studying, I would expect nothing less. Clara cleared her throat. Have you ever, considered the possibility of additional schooling? Extra hours on top of the regular sessions? He looked at Lena. If you think you can handle it, I won't object. No, Clara interrupted him gently. Not here. At a boarding school. There are some excellent ones around London, and I'm sure we could work out the arrangements. I'd never considered it before, but when Lena mentioned it to me, well, I actually think it's quite brilliant. Lena shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She wished Clara hadn't said it was her idea. Lena, Theo said in a low voice, this is your idea? Are you not happy here? Of course I'm happy. I love it here. Lena fiddled with her pencil. I just thought maybe I could do more, she whispered. Oh, Lena, Theo said, his face full of sorrow. I can't let you live in a dormitory alone. I know you've made progress with these treatments, but suppose the nurses don't know what to do. Suppose you hurt yourself and no one is around. Suppose the classrooms are all on different floors. And he went on, rattling off a list of obstacles. It's fine. It was silly to suggest it. Lena picked up her notebook, refusing to make eye contact with her governess or her father. Forget I asked, she said, keeping her head bowed. Theo stared at his daughter, his heart aching. He hated disappointing her, wished there was something that he could do to make her feel better. He motioned to Clara to join him in the hallway, out of earshot, and she followed him outside. Theo ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. Clara, while I respect your skills as a teacher, please don't encourage these kinds of ideas. You know very well how I feel about Lena being separated from me. I understand, sir, but if I may, we've never asked if there are schools set up for students with physical limitations. Have we? Maybe one could accommodate her condition. Dr. Wilson is already experimenting with her treatments. Why not try the same with her education? Theo's eyes flashed angrily. Even if she thrived academically, I don't see how I could keep her safe if she was off living in some godforsaken school miles away. He ran his hands up and down the velvet-covered walls. I think it's best not to speak of this to her again. It will only end in her disappointment. Clara nodded silently and walked away. Later that night, Theo sat in his armchair while Lena dozed off peacefully. As he watched his daughter sleep, guilt gnawed at his insides.
Gia's dying wish refusing to leave his thoughts. I want my child to have an education. Restless, Theo rose from his chair and removed a faded envelope from his dresser drawer. He sat down at his desk, lit a candle, taking care to position it so that the light didn't wake Lena. He slid the letter out and began reading it, his mind drifting back to happier times, that night in Madrid, the sun-soaked streets of Thessaloniki, his hand clutching hers, a promise to never let go. Till we are together forever, my sweet Theo. Yours, Isabella. As the letter came to a close, a familiar feeling of dread swirled inside him. This is when the memories turned sour, the once happy vignettes of joy now overshadowed by a heavy sadness at how it had all ended. Theo glanced at the shelves crammed with Lena's books, the flickering candle giving everything around him a soft glow. There was nothing he hated more than disappointing Gia and Lena, but they didn't understand things the way he did. They didn't have the benefit of hindsight. I'm sorry, Gia, he thought, stuffing the letter hastily back into the envelope. He got up, pulled open the dresser, and buried it under a pile of sweaters. Theo took a deep breath as he curled his fingers around the dresser's cool brass knobs. I can't risk losing any more than I already have. Then he shut the drawer firmly and blew out the candle. So Gia is Lena's mom. Today's goal, catch him on YouTube. Nice. Gia is Lena's mom. I think Isabella is a woman he was having an affair with. I don't have any proof of that, but that's my guess. No, the one they rent, you mean the soothsayer? The fortune teller soothsayer woman's name was Adelpha. Her name was Adelpha. I think Isabella is someone he was having an affair with. Yeah, I think he was having an affair, and I think he believes that his affair cursed his family. I think that's what he thinks. Now, I don't know what Gia's secret was, but I think she must have known about the affair because she said, I kept your secret, you have to keep mine. So that means that Gia had a secret as well, and we don't know what it was because she told Theo on her deathbed to keep that secret for her, you know? So we don't know. But chapter 13 and chapter 14 are both short, so I think we have time to read them because it's 7:45. I think we can do it. I think we do 13 and 14 today because they're pretty short. Chapter 12 was long, but I think the next two are short. By the spring of 1940, Alexander could do the cups and balls trick, the dove pan illusion, the disappearing penny act, and the French drop. At Horace's request, he appeared before each performance in the lobby along with 4 other troupe members. There was a contortionist painted gold and blue so that it looks like she was wearing nothing but a second skin. There was a water ballerina clad in metallic blue mermaid tail that melted into the gold foil covering her skin, making her look like a fantastical creature. She spun and floated gaily in her glass tank, executing pirouettes and graceful somersaults as spectators gawped and pointed. A bare-chested fire-eater stood imposingly near the entrance, his muscular limbs shiny with sweat from the heat of the flames at the end of the sticks that he brandished. But this flame wasn't the standard orange amber. It began as a brilliant blue, but when he withdrew it from his mouth to the gasps of the crowd, it was pure gold. Lastly, there was a knife juggler who tossed blue-handled golden blades into the air and caught them with ease. He began with 12 daggers, and then he swapped them out for 12 swords that were so heavy even Alexander couldn't figure out how he managed to handle them. The knife juggler's hair was long and black, with a streak of gold running down the left side. Alexander was thrilled to finally be contributing in a more meaningful way. With Theo's encouragement, he added in elements of sleight of hand and mentalism to his maneuvers, asking a bearded man to write down what color he was thinking of on a blank sheet of paper before hiding it in his pocket away from Alexander's eyes.
when the young magician proceeded to make a silk scarf materialize out of the air that was exact color that the man had written down, the onlookers went wild. They were not the majestic sweeping escapes that Theo pulled off, but as Horace watched the crowd around the young boy from his perch on the balcony above, his mind did begin to turn. As spring gave way to summer, Europe became increasingly chaotic. I have to go help my kids with schoolwork later. Bye, darling. See you later. The British Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, resigned only to have Winston Churchill take his place. Paris fell and France surrendered. The blue and gold carriages were stopped more frequently and searched by SS officers eager to inflict pain and find fault with anyone who wasn't like them. Would it be so bad to stay in one place? Theo asked during one of the searches. The Cirque d'Hiver is booming business in Paris. Horace sniffled. We are not other circuses, Theo. Part of our appeal is our scarcity. When you only have a short window to see something, you're more likely to go. He gestured at the expanse around him. What incentive would people have to come if we set up in a permanent square? Theo nodded warily. He understood where the circus director's logic was coming from, but he couldn't help but wonder if it was the right choice. There was also a growing concern about the cast. Whispers about safety, allegiances, money. Horace didn't let anyone see his books, but as he studied his financial reports for June, he knew he had to act fast. A series of canceled appearances in Denmark, Luxembourg, and Norway meant that he had a deficit for the first time. But holding back in this climate was for the meek, and Horace was anything but. Do we think? Oh, that's an interesting question, Becca. I hadn't considered that. That is interesting. True. If he's not, he's even better than we thought. Yeah, of a father anyway. We'll see. Do you know what people want, Chadwick? Horace had asked one evening as he puffed lazily on a cigar. Chadwick shrugged. Horace exhaled a thick ring of smoke, watching as it slowly disappeared into the air. Exclusivity coupled with hedonism. Inspired by the Roaring Twenties, Horace dreamed up the Bath and Bubbles party. It was an invitation-only affair, reserved strictly for the wealthiest of people. Fearing what could happen in London, Horace elected to set up on the grounds of a sprawling private estate in Surrey. He dubbed the whole shindig English Garden Party Meets Prohibition, and invited the cream of British society. As the guests arrived, they were greeted and offered drinks by troupe members dressed as pool attendants and flappers. Between trays of sidecars and mint juleps, the performers unleashed backflips and cartwheels. The orchestra, dapper in their tuxedos, played at the center of the Mirage maze that had been decorated with sprays of pink, white, and English red roses. Inside, the stage and sets had been reconstructed around a giant plexiglass swimming pool that was shrouded in black. When the show began, mauve and pink beams of light illuminated it from underneath with a fairy-like glow. The audience gasped as the full set came into view. There were diving boards that moved horizontally and vertically through a series of pulleys and rigs, tossing acrobats, trapeze artists, and divers clad in red and white striped swimsuits into the air. Behind the pool, a giant trampoline caught former elite gymnasts who rebounded back up, saluting the audience each time to rapturous applause. Following a performance by the water ballerinas set to music from the Cotton Club, Theo and Alexander teamed up to do a double Chinese water chamber act. They came out onto the stage dressed as a police officer and a prisoner. At the end, the copper Alexander waved from the tank, his hands free of handcuffs, while the prisoner, Theo, took a bow from the 12-foot-tall diving board before jumping into the pool as darkness fell over the scene. Afterwards, there was a reception on the lawn. The performers changed out of their costumes, donned ankle-length gowns and tuxedos to mingle with the British aristocracy and society mavens.
Mauve and pink champagne was served in glasses rimmed with real gold, and the kitchen staff, kitted out in white, served trays of foie gras and water crackers purchased on the black market. Lena, Alexander, and most of the other children stayed up late that night. The success of the show meant energy levels were at a season's high. With Alexander's help and insistence, Lena participated in the milk can toss, blushing each time the other children cheered whenever she came close to getting a ball near one of the cans. When they grew tired of that game, they gathered at one of the long tables and ate lemon sorbet served to them in sugar-rimmed coupes. From afar, Theo watched his daughter fondly. The benefits of Lena's therapy sessions extended far beyond the physical effects on her legs. The confidence that she had gained spilled over into the other facets of her life. In the last few weeks especially, Theo had caught her laughing with great abandon and engaging with other children. Even when she was sitting in her chair, she was no longer hunched over with her arms crossed, trying to hide herself from the world. Seated with other kids, Lena settled back in her chair, enjoying the scene. It didn't matter that everything was crumbling around them. For the first time in her life, Lena felt like she was part of something, like she could finally belong to an exclusive club. The party continued into the night. At 2 o'clock in the morning, Horace climbed onto the podium. The night, he knew, had been an unabashed, roaring success. Already the Rockford family had confirmed that they would pledge part of their fortune to keep the show afloat, and offers from others kept tumbling in. In times like these, many wonder what we can do, why this level of excess is still important, when it makes logical sense to switch to a more austere way of thinking. Horace paused for effect. But I say, in times like these, the world of wonders is more important than ever. Where there is bedlam, we bring harmony. Where there is ambiguity, we bring assurance. Where there is darkness, we bring light. At these words, the spotlights blinked, drilling home his point. The audience began to clap. Horace, in his element, raised his glass. A toast, he said merrily to the cheer of the drunken crowd, to all of you, and to what the world of wonders will become. 2 days later, the Battle of Britain began. It's really interesting, actually. I mean, Horace is absolutely my kind of guy in his soul and what he loves and what he believes. If you take away the business aspect of it, but I get why he has to do, he's a showman, you know what I mean? He's straight out a perfect showman. And he gets why art is important even in these times, even though he's trying to make money. Who among us doesn't want our art to make money? He's very outgoing and needs attention. He is outgoing and he needs attention, but he understands the importance of the art in hard times as well. A lot of people who have as much money as he does naturally would just fold. He's a wealthy man from a wealthy family. He doesn't have to do this work. He's choosing to do this work out of the love of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's really interesting. It's something that, although I'm trying to figure out how they bring assurance, I think maybe he means emotionally, because he's talking about light in the darkness. He did not give up his family money. Remember, he got an early inheritance from his grandmother. His grandmother gave him an early inheritance. Plus, look how many people he's responsible for providing for. That's true. That's a good point. He does have a lot of people to provide for. Got a lot of mouths to feed. He may not have his own children, but in a way, when you build something like that, they are your children, right? In a weird way. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm with him in that regard, And also, at the same time, even though he's making his performers, it's really easy in 2023
to say you shouldn't have to hide who you are, but I completely understand why he would ask Johannes to take his makeup off when they're being searched, why he would ask different people to pretend they're of different origins when they're being searched. He doesn't make them do it on a regular basis, but he is protecting them. You know what I mean? And it's really easy for us to sit in a place of much more security and look at that and say like, oh, Johannes should be able to wear makeup whenever he wants. But Horace is protecting them by making him take it off and forcing him to hide only in those moments. He doesn't make him always hide, but he's making him hide for a good reason. No, yeah, he's protecting them as best he can. And honestly, he's probably doing them all the biggest favor he could, because outside of a show like this, people like him would have to hide all the time. So having to hide 10% of the time is a way big boost, you know? It sucks to suck in that time, but like, yeah, he's given them a good life the rest of the time. You know what I mean? That's one thing about being in showbiz, you know, is that you're mostly protected because of exactly what he said in this little speech. Like there was, what did he say? He said, you know, we bring harmony and light. You know, entertainers have always been given a little bit more leeway than others, you know, and that's not fair. I don't think it's fair that we get, and forgive me for speaking out of turn and saying this, but I, on some level, despite the fact that I don't full-time work in theater anymore, I still, on a level, do consider myself an entertainment professional, an entertainer in some ways, you know? And so I count my blessings that we get a lot of room, if you will, to do things that other people might not have the opportunities to do. And I definitely entertain me. Thank you, Becca. I live to entertain you. That is my entire goal in life. You know, I don't envy people who don't get that freedom of expression in their regular life, you know? Yeah. It's a weird thing to consider, but I think it's true that people in regular lines of work don't often feel that. That is, I do have to say, as I'm thinking about this though, I do think that for all of the faults that we have found over the last couple of decades with social media, right? People want to complain about social media nonstop. I do give it credit for two really important things. And the first is allowing people the freedom of expression that you might not get in your regular life because you don't have to hide in a weird way, you know? And the other thing that social media does is it creates communities across boundaries. That's something that I learned really early on in my work in social media, especially when I was Broadway spotted. You know, I don't think any of you were Broadway spotted followers, but if you ever talk to anyone who was, it was a really interesting time. It does help people find their people. I started Broadway spotted as a joke, literally as a joke. I was messing with my friends and I did it as a joke, as a young 20-something who was like, I bet I can mess with my friends. You know me, I'm always doing harmless pranks and whatever like that. And Broadway Spotted started as one of my giant harmless pranks. And it blossomed into something that helped so many people that it really reframed my thinking. Hey, Jenna. It reframed my thinking about what social media is for and what social media can do for people, because I used to get letters from teenagers in middle America saying,
I've never gotten to experience these things. Thank you for giving me a window into everything I love. I've never gotten to have friends that like the same things. You've helped me meet other people, you know, no matter how far away they are, that are my age, that have the same interests and all these things. And I was like, whoa, that's freaking deep, right? And I was a kid myself at the time, you know, I didn't understand the gravity of it at first, but as an adult, I definitely understand. And obviously I was legally an adult. I was like 23 years old, but I don't consider a 23-year-old a full adult, you know? I definitely know I was a child at the time, but like, I was like, whoa, man, that's deep, you know? And social media has that power to do that and like release people. And that's what we have here. We're reading the Circus Train. That's what we have here, and that's what they have there. You know what I mean? A community of freedom. I'm just a baby. Hurry up so I can call you and vent my frustrations. Okay, we only have one more chapter to read, Jenna, and then I'll get off. But yeah, I think we've done a really good job of doing the same thing here on this page. You know what I mean? And you guys can correct me if you feel differently, but I think that we've done a really good job of curating a very safe community. No new ones, the same ones. That's okay. I can listen to the same ones. I'm a repetitive person as well. So anyway, let's read this next small chapter, and then we will go get started with our day, and I will pack slimes while Jenna vents. All right, how many pages do we have on this one? I think we can do this one pretty quickly. Reventing is still helpful. I agree. Chapter 14. In August, Theo, Alexander, and Lena returned to Thessaloniki for their annual break. The two children spent lazy days of summer playing games under the shade of the cypress tree, shooting marbles on the wooden floor in the hallway, and stuffing themselves with as much ice cream as they could. Alexander continued his lessons with Theo, adding more tricks to his arsenal, and Lena kept up their therapy exercises that Dr. Wilson had showed Theo and Alexander, how to soak the wet rags around her limbs, and they all took turns doing it. The progress in her legs was so exciting that the thoughts of boarding school started to fade into the back of her mind. Just before they were due back in London, Ioannis Mittakis, the Prime Minister of Greece, stood up to Benito Mussolini, the Italian Prime Minister, resulting in the Greeks going to war against Italy. Theo sat in his kitchen listening to the somber voice of the BBC World Service reporter explaining the situation. He was torn. If they stayed in Greece, they would have to find some means of supporting his daughter and Alexander. If they went back on tour, he risked putting their lives even more in danger. Horace's telegrams were laced with a remarkable positivity. He seemed oblivious to He seemed oblivious to the continent crumbling around him. Theo had thought about what kind of work his skills would get him in Thessaloniki. The occasional carpentry job? A handyman for hire? No economy in Europe was thriving at the moment. As bizarre as it sounded, the world of make-believe was probably their safest bet. See? Didn't I literally just say that? Did you ever hear from the school? Hear from what school? What? Hold on. Sorry, I didn't mean to click away. That was an accident. Wait, what? I don't know what's going on, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Theo concluded warily and turned off the radio. They arrived at Victoria Station only to be squirreled away to a hired house in Epsom. It was only then that they started to see how much things had changed. 7 performers from the last tour hadn't returned. 3 had made their way to Portugal, which they claimed offered neutrality. Others didn't want to leave their family. 2 male acrobats took up in arms with their respective countries. London had become a war zone, Horace explained one evening at the company meeting, and though he added that it wouldn't affect them, but the reality told a different story. Theo was horrified to see a barrage of balloons lingering on the outskirts of the practice house where they were holed up. At night, Lena and Alexander lay awake listening to the strains on the RAF planes battling with the Luftwaffe. Their air raids had nearly tripled in number, and the rat-a-tat of guns was now as common as birdsong. With the new tour came a new school year. On the second day of the term, Clara sat across from Lena, a serious look on her face. "Did I do something wrong?" Lena asked. She glanced at the packet of holiday coursework that she'd submitted the day before. "What I'm about to say must stay between us, and I'm doing this at risk of my career."
Doing what? I met a man over the summer, a man who within 5 minutes of our conversation told me I was as valuable as a bottle of spoiled milk, old, sour, and no longer of use to anyone. Lena frowned. He doesn't sound like a very nice man. Indeed, Clara said. That gentleman wasn't, as my mother said, fit for me. However, one good thing did come out of it. It made me realize how little the world values a female mind. Clara looked hard at Lena. You are bright, Lena. You are brighter than I was at your age. Lord knows it's a cruel benefit of spending your childhood isolated in this library and infirmary. But you have a gift, and it would be a shame not to use it. Clara reached underneath the table and took out a stack of fresh textbooks, all different colors, with smooth covers and spines that gleamed under the lights. The holidays provided me with an abundance of time to think, and I've decided that if you would like to, you should work towards studying for your examination for admittance to St. Ives. Lena blinked. Pardon me? We can begin preparations immediately. You're studying as it is, so why not claim for a higher target? Mocks are in June, and the real exams take place the following February. Clara took the first book off the pile and slid it in front of Lena. You were right. Your brain is far from broken, and you owe it to yourself to use it to the best of your ability. Lena had already wheeled her chair around the table, and now she reached up and threw her arms around her governess, burying her face in her hair. Clara, thank you. I promise I will be your best student. You're my only student. Lena grinned, but just as quickly as her mood lifted, it dropped. Are you quite sure we can't tell Papa? Clara paused, thinking back to brief conversation that she'd had with Theo last season. She understood where his hesitation came from, but she also knew she had to give the girl a chance. I don't want to lie, but I see no other way. Sometimes people who love us the most hold us back because they want to protect us. For now, I think you should focus on the work. If you end up being admitted, we'll cross that bridge together. That night, Lena pulled off her fluffy, dark blue quilt and That night, as Lena pulled her fluffy, dark blue quilt around her in bed, she imagined what it would feel like to wake up in a new school, to put on a uniform, to carry new books, and to write with freshly sharpened pencils. She imagined eating breakfast in a mess hall, laughing with other girls, and going out on Sundays with the matron leading the way. For the first time in her life, Lena felt like what it was like to imagine the impossible. As she drifted off to sleep, she knew there was no turning back. 10 days before Christmas, Dr. Wilson asked Lena to meet him in the infirmary. Thinking that it was going to be a routine procedure update, she wheeled herself down the hall. The past few weeks, she'd made huge improvements, even feeling reflexes, her mouth curling up into a delighted smile when she saw her knee move in response to the tiny hammer that Dr. Wilson tapped her with. Perhaps he'd have a new set of exercises for her, or had discovered a new type of cloth that didn't smell. When she reached the infirmary carriage, she rolled herself in, coming to a halt when she saw Alexander standing beside her father and Dr. Wilson. What are you doing here? We wanted him to be here when you opened your gift, Dr. Wilson said. Gift? Lena wrinkled her brow. It's not my birthday. An early Christmas present. We decided it couldn't wait, Theo piped up. As he moved to one side, oh, I know what this is. Lena saw a long package lying on the bed she usually slept on when she was in there. It was as wide as the bed, and it was wrapped in brown packing paper with a huge red bow fastened in the middle. Looking at her father curiously, Lena untied the ribbon and ripped off the paper. Inside the box were 2 industrial-looking metal rods. Each had a thick brown leather strap with a buckle near the top and the bottom. What are they? They're leg braces, Dr. Wilson said. For me? Slowly, Lena looked at Dr. Wilson, not daring to believe this. Does this mean That you can start trying to walk? Yes, Theo shouted, unable to contain his excitement. And then everything happened so fast. Her father leaned over to hug her. Alexander picked up the braces and hauled them out to Lena. And Dr. Wilson launched into the details of new physical therapy plans. What do you think? Dr. Wilson asked after he finished the explaining. Lena burst into tears. I hate them, she cried. Take them away. Lena? Theo's face fell. Give them back. I won't wear them. Tears streamed down Lena's face as she rolled herself into the hallway. Theo tried to follow her, but Alexander stopped him. Let me, he said. In the hall, Lena dried her tears, feeling guilty for how she just acted. Dr. Wilson, her father, and Alexander, they'd been nothing but supportive. Need a friend? Alexander asked, joining her. He watched, and Lena glanced at the infirmary door. It's okay. I told them to give us some time. Lena smiled appreciatively, wondering what to say next. How could she explain to Alexander, to anyone, the emotions that she was feeling? She traced a groove on her wheelchair with her finger and then glanced at Alexander. It's not that I don't want to try, she began carefully, but I'm used to everything the way it is now. It's comfortable, and everyone's so used to me being in my chair. She trailed off, amazed at what she was about to say. It's so silly, but now that it's real, I'm not sure I want it. That's not silly, Alexander replied, thinking about how hard it was for him to see himself as anything other than a thief and a liar. It's hard to make change. His stomach churned as his mind raced to the money and stolen objects now in the hollow under his bedroom floor. Lena nodded, grateful that he seemed to understand. Plus, they're ugly, aren't they? If I wear those, everyone will laugh. Alexander grinned. Have you seen some of the costumes that Martha puts people in? If they laugh, you could easily laugh right back, he said, breaking into a giggle. Lena sighed. He had a point, although she didn't want to admit it. If you don't want to try to walk, that's your choice, Alexander said. But if you're afraid to try because the idea of becoming someone new is scary, or you're worried about what others will say, well, I think you should give it a shot. Alexander glanced at the infirmary door. As for how they look, how about instead of thinking about them as ugly, you flip it? Think of them as beautiful. Lena laughed, convinced he was joking. There was nothing beautiful about those clunky metal contraptions. I'm serious, Alexander continued. They're beautiful because of what they can make you do. Imagine what it would be like to walk or swim in the sea in Greece or kick a football. How about walking into boarding school? Alexander's eyebrows shot up as he said the last line. Plus, you said this was an experiment, and you can't have a proper experiment without consistent data. You can't stop now. Lena mulled over his advice. Using braces would open up her world and allow her more opportunities. She hated the idea of not completing her research because of fear of what others would say. That wasn't how any great scientist thought, she reminded herself. She glanced at the infirmary door, chewing thoughtfully on her lower lip. And then she broke into a smile and nodded at Alexander. All right, I'll give him a try. All right, Lena's gonna try. Whew. It's like 8:15. Yeah, 8:16. I was close. 8:16. I do love Alexander. I think he's wonderful. I really think Alexander is a wonderful kid, and I'm sorry that he had such a hard life. It's always Bunny from Becca's out for delivery to you at UPS box. Oh my gosh, well, I'm going there. I'll probably go there right after I go to Michael's, or maybe before. I don't know. I have things to mail for my mom and the custom orders I have to mail too. All right, guys, we got a lot of reading done today. This takes 2 hours to process, but then I'll put it up on YouTube for anyone who missed out so we can tell them that later. But everything else is already up there all of the other days. And I'll see you guys later. Bye. Your bunnies come today too. Yay, we can compare them. How cute.